in under 10 seconds. When they visit your website, they will decide if they trust you or if they don't trust you. And then 75% just base their total opinion on your brand right there and then, based on the aesthetics. So users will typically spend about 2.5 seconds creating that first impression. So we're talking high percentage in a small time frame. So this is really important stuff into just getting someone there and keeping them. So we're going to talk about, how design is more than just a nice color palette and the font that you pick and a clean layout. Really good design does things for you. It serves you. It targets the needs of your audience. It really encourages engagement. And it does all the things that we want it to do, like converting, getting someone to subscribe, getting them to contact you. Whatever the goal of your website is, the design will really kind of enforce that and create opportunities for that to kind of unfold. Sorry, it's like very finicky. Here we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about strategy and kind of get a feel for hopefully where you guys are at in some of this stuff. Some of the groundwork that's really, really important to this conversation, no matter if you are someone that has an existing website that you feel like maybe could use a little bit of love, or if you're kind of embarking on needing to build one fresh. These are kind of all things that can be really helpful into making sure that your website is where it needs to be. So what you'll really want to focus on is determining what type of website, because that's going to help you determine the objectives that you need to ladder up to. So there's lots of different types of websites, but largely they fall under 3 main buckets. So the first of that being service and businesses. In this kind of bucket, your sales and whatever your service is, the selling of that doesn't necessarily happen online. So your goals are really educating your user around who you are, why they should care, what makes you different, and then getting them to complete some sort of action. You have a call to action, your CTA. So that could be sign up for a newsletter, schedule a meeting, all of those things to kind of generate leads, really. So that's kind of this bucket. The next being e-commerce, which has a lot of the same goals. You're going to want to educate the user on why you're different, why they should care, all that sort of stuff. The difference here is that the sales for your product or service do happen online. So it may not be in the same visitation that you're educating someone and selling something to them, having them purchase something, but it does kind of happen all in the same space. And those do take some different considerations, being in a slightly different category. And then the last is what I like to call utility. My dog's like chiming in. You got something to say? So I like to call this utility. It kind of functions as a tool. Your website is your business is your website. It's kind of all one and the same. And some examples of these are Facebook, Airbnb. There's tons of different types of websites that fall under this category. So it's kind of loose, but you're not necessarily selling something. You're not making a sale. You're kind of there as a tool. So those are kind of the 3 that I feel that websites typically fall under. So that might help you if you're like, I don't really know what I want someone to do when they come on my website. If you can figure out which one you fall into, that can usually help kind of get things flowing. So when we think about the structure of a website, when we think about how important it is to function correctly. Our website is an asset. That's like down to the core. It's a major asset to your brand. So we need to really think about setting some really good bones. And the bones of a website are kind of these 5 things that I've outlined. The first being your brand, making sure that that's visible. You want a user to know exactly whose website they are on when they first land on it. And then we want number 2, navigation. And this can take different forms. Most commonly you can see it across the top of a website. Sometimes it's along the side. On mobile, it's up in the corner and it's a drop down. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that it's easy to find and that it creates easy ways for a user to navigate throughout your website, whether it's a 1-page website or a 20-page website. A really clearly defined navigation is really, really key. Number 3 is your hero image. This is kind of what we call above the fold, and that kind of takes its name from, more print forms, but it translates here in the web as well. It is the first piece of content that a user sees when they land on your website. So it's got to be pretty good. It's got to be compelling, clear messaging, and hopefully some sort of call to action, or and whether that's a button or it is just some sort of indication to get the user to scroll and start interacting with your website. Essentially anything that keeps them from hitting the back button. We don't want them to do that. 4 is your content. That's a lot of different stuff. That's the meat. That's who you are, what you do, why you're different, all that stuff. And then every page is kind of anchored with your footer. So those are the bones. That's what you need, absolute bare minimum basics before we even talk about some of the higher level strategies. So we're going to dig into those next. Really important one here, defining your purpose. Whether you want to be driving traffic, engaging prospects, improving awareness of customers that are already interacting with your brand, growing your bottom line, etc. No matter what it is, we want to be defining those things and really digging deep and being super specific. We really want to make sure that those goals are also attainable. If they're not realistic, they're not going to serve you. Make sure there's a lot of clarity around the goals that you're defining. Make sure that they're concrete aspirations, something you're not going to move from. That'll really help you stay accountable to them. And then once you kind of define these things, you'll want to support them and use those when you're creating copy or giving direction to a copywriter. Those goals are what is going to support your messaging and your call to action, because ultimately that call to action is what is going to drive someone to do something. So that's really going to ladder into all of that stuff. Next, this is an example. Headspace, this is kind of their above the fold hero content that we just talked about. I think they've done a really great job here, and this is kind of why I wanted to drop this in and follow up that slide with this. I think right away we can see what their purpose is. It's making sleep simple. They have really clearly defined their content, their messaging, their CTA, and I can bet that they used all of that and laddered it up to what their brand purpose ultimately is. And they have a really great way of communicating that. So this is a great example. They also have nice branding. So speaking of branding, we really want to consider anytime there's a piece of content, whether that's copy or visuals, we want to think about how that is reinforcing your brand. It's not just there to look pretty, it's there for a purpose. It is there to communicate your brand's identity. And a really great piece of all of this is a brand guideline. If you have one or if you don't have one, making sure if you do have one that it is clearly outlined how to use your brand in certain scenarios, how to use content, how to use color, typography. If that's ever in question, it's a really great document to lean on. So I always advocate for having something like that because it does help enforce the website as well. And then just, if you're numbers people, I like to see statistics. They say that 85% of B2B and 79% of B2C users say that the experience they have with a brand is just as important as the quality of what it sells. So your website is part of that. The experience that they have with your website is just as important as what you're selling. So that's pretty big. That's a huge indicator of making sure that you're investing in your website and making sure that you're using it as a tool, because that is, at the end of the day, what it is. This is a good example of a website that has a very clearly defined brand. We can see through their clean visuals and how they're really highlighting their information and making a really clean layout that's minimalistic, intentionally support the messaging here. They're really letting that shine. I think this is a great example of consistent branding. It looks nice. We can see that it's well thought out. It feels really clean and simple, but we can also tell that it's really intentionally done in a way that looks nice and kind of achieves some of these things that we're talking about. Storytelling. So storytelling, obviously has a lot of different meanings, but as it relates to design, it is kind of like the strategic use of design elements and content to create a narrative that unfolds as a visitor moves throughout your site. A website tells a story, and that it helps your website become something so much more than something that will generate leads or increase your ROI. It becomes a brand ambassador, your website does, when you kind of look at it this way and look at it as a storytelling piece. So the way we want to do that is through looking at our target audience. I keep saying target audience, and it's so, so important because they're the people that want to feel that authenticity to your brand. They're the people that will forge relationships with your brand. So making sure you're speaking directly to them, making sure that you are telling them your unique story, telling them why you're going to solve whatever problems they have, whatever it may be. You want to make sure you're talking to them and making your content user-friendly, making it something that's really digestible to them, breaking things out in simplified steps, using visuals to reinforce the content. Those are all really great ways to do that. And anytime we're using visuals, anytime we're using any type of content, we want to make sure it's really, really high quality, and it is telling the story, and it's ultimately leading the user to that call to action, to your CTA. The ultimate goal here is to guide them to your CTA while telling them your story at the same time. So we're going to take a look actually at the Blue Fire website.
Can I interject? I just want to know which kindergartner is getting onto the screen and drawing.
I know.
This is Becca. This has to be Becca that's doing this. Just kidding. No, isn't that funny? Like, do you see these red lines?
Yeah, I do. I'm like,
that's hilarious. Anyway, it's funny. I'm like, this is fun. This really is interactive.
I know, right?
I don't know what that is. Anyway, I just thought
I don't know.
I mean, call it out.
Yeah, no, good call. I thought maybe I was just seeing.
Well, actually, these red stretch lines are part of our branding.
I know. Yeah, we should say that is not intentional.
I don't know what that is. Go ahead.
Sorry. I haven't heard of it. All right, we're gonna, now that we've kind of walked through some of those strategies, I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a look at the Blue Fire website. I think these strategies we leaned pretty heavily on them. We really wanted to focus around what makes Blue Fire different from any other marketing agency. And Erin had a lot of really specific inspirations for the conception of Blue Fire. So we felt it really important to convey those. So we'll talk about this a little bit. I'll walk you through. These are just some screenshots. So feel free to pull it up on a separate screen if you want to actually walk through it yourself, so you can see it from a little bit more of an interactive perspective instead of this more static perspective. So first of all, we start out, we have a really nice hero image, some copy that is very brand forward, very much laddering up to the Blue Fire, the name. And we have kind of this CTA that's a little bit non-traditional, but the purpose of it is to encourage interaction, like the spark. So we talk about what makes us different, what makes us special. We use our branding guidelines to enforce the look and feel here. We create those simplified, broken out, not so much steps, but our collective of services. We've broken it out very clearly. It's easily digestible. We reinforce it with some visuals that are very brand forward. These are customized icons that are very specific and bring in elements of the brand. So those are all things that are engaging. They're things that people haven't seen before. They're not like, oh, that's the icon that I see all the time for digital, like seen it, moving on. We create things that are engaging and attention grabbing. Talking about our resume and some testimonials. Testimonials are a really, really great way to instill trust and some qualification of your brand. People like to hear what other people have to say. They don't always want to hear you say it. They want to hear someone else say it. So if you have those are great to use. It was really important to us to create a whole section around our team. And if you were to view this on the website, this is our really interactive piece where you can kind of click around and learn about different members. Again, this is really engaging, and this is storytelling. Our team is kind of what makes us so special. There's a lot of elements to it, but the team was really an important one. So we kind of gave it its own section here, and it's a really fun way to kind of discover who the team is and what makes everyone so special and how their individual backgrounds ladder up to Blue Fire. And then, so it's all, this experience kind of is all anchored around contact us. This is a service. So we kind of fall into that bucket, right? So we want you to schedule a meeting. We want you to, take everything you've learned and give you compelling reasons to engage further with the brand.
Yeah, and this is a little, going to jump in here. This could be different for different folks, but I felt like when you have a service, you kind of just want 15 minutes with someone, and you can see if you're the right fit. And I am really generous with my time. I try, like, it's part of Blue Fire's brand ethos, but I'm like, I have 15 minutes for anyone, like, can I help you? Can I point you in the right direction? Or is this going to be the next big client from me? It doesn't really matter because it's helpful and it's kind of community oriented. So anybody can schedule 15 minutes in, and that's not everybody does that, but that's what I wanted to do.
Yep. Awesome. These red lines are distracting me. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit now that we've talked about some strategies that you can implement and really take some time to mull over before you kind of jump into a project, before you think about rehauling your website. Those are some really, really great strategies that are going to help you have a brand forward design. If you start thinking about the brand first, a good design will follow. So the next kind of piece of this is choosing the right website building platform for you. So just curious if anyone wants to share. Does anyone have a website right now that they have? Yeah. Do you use WordPress? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to talk about my top recommendations. WordPress is definitely one of them. Would you give them a thumbs up, side thumb? We're about WordPress. Awesome. Cool. So we all know about WordPress. About 34% of websites use WordPress. It kind of started as a blogging platform and has evolved into something that can be used for all types of businesses and websites. It is a really great platform that I recommend to clients when they want something that's really customizable, has a lot of features, and they're willing to put a little time into upkeeping it, learning the interface. It can be really easy once you learn it, but it takes a little time to do so. There's third-party plugins to consider. These are all great because this is what makes your website as customizable as you want it to be. It's pretty much endless. And then, it's really great for a variety, a full spectrum of clients. If you're a novice or if you're an expert, you want to have really super customized features through custom coding. This is a great option. But also, if you want something a little bit more simplified that you can get in there and you can change the content to, there's options for that as well. So it's a wide range that it offers for the types of people that I think would benefit from a WordPress website. Everything also comes a little bit with its pros and cons. So the pros being, like I said, flexible, customizable. Cons being it takes a little bit more of a time commitment to learn the interface, maybe versus some other platforms. But also, some of the plugins, the security, you need to update it, stuff like that. It's not difficult stuff. It's just a little bit of a time commitment. So everyone's different. It just depends. My next recommendation is Squarespace. This is really kind of great for anyone that's like that. The WordPress sounds like a little bit too much for me, or I may not need all that stuff. With Squarespace, you have access to all their built-in stuff. They have a really great CMS. E-commerce, they kind of have the offering that WordPress does, just without all the bells and whistles and without the endless possibilities, which is absolutely fine and sometimes just enough for some people. I've worked with clients that they have a beautiful website that comes out of Squarespace, and from a user perspective, you wouldn't know if it was WordPress or if it was Squarespace, but sometimes they just want something that's really simple, communicates what they want in a very clean way, and they don't want to have an interface that takes a little bit of that time to use. You could get into Squarespace and pretty much pick it up right away. Get in there, make a quick copy change, stuff like that. So it's more for hands-off, really simple websites. It's a good option for that. So kind of went over those pros and cons. I will say with Squarespace, it was kind of the origination of it was to be geared towards people that don't really have any experience with web development or design or anything like that at all, that you're not tech savvy. So the pro of that being there's a less chance of you going in there and being like, I need to change this one thing. Oh crap, I broke the whole website. That's not going to happen. And then so the flip side of that being that there are just limited design options to keep you from breaking the website, essentially. And then lastly, Webflow. This is pretty new. It's pretty new to the web building platform options. I think it's just a few years old, but it's gained a lot of popularity, a lot of traction. It's actually what we use to build the Blue Fire website. So I can speak to it from a web development design standpoint. And then Erin, if you wanted to chat a little bit about how you interact with it. But I found, and this is why it's become one of my top recommendations, is that it's a really great marriage between the user friendliness of Squarespace, but also the advanced capabilities of WordPress. You get a pretty nice user interface that's easy to interact with, but you also get this platform that offers almost endless possibilities, just as WordPress does, but in a little bit of a cleaner, tidier way. And it's, it is geared toward those without a design experience, but it's also has some really, really nice capabilities for someone that does have a little bit of that development coding background. You could take it or leave it. You don't need it either way, but it's there. So it's a really great option when you get into that really nitty gritty, customized features realm. It's there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, so it's really awesome.
And I think one of the why it's gaining in popularity, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kylan, just because I'm not a web developer, but it's cloud based. It's so it's definitely like a modern the modern way, if you will, and then it also it seems as though I mean, there's like a million templates and that kind of thing, but from my interface, like how I work with it, I'm like adding blogs but like I went to go change, I could change actual copy on the website without totally really messing some up. Sometimes I like need a URL to redirect or something like that, like we did this week.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty easy, and especially if you've used WordPress in any way in the past, like it's somewhat similar, I think, in that layout. But the designers seem to really be gravitating to it more and more. But that cloud-based element is what really kind of it stands apart in that way, correct?
Yes. Yep. No, you're 100% right. Yeah.
And I what do you call it? Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. I host it through Webflow.
Oh yeah. Yep. It has hosting.
I have like my domain through GoDaddy. So some of that is some of the weeds. Like if you're trying to build a website, like that you have to kind of figure out like, okay, where's my domain being hosted, and then how do I host my website, and then the design element. But if I'm not mistaken, Kylan, we did not pay for the design in any way.
No.
The design, like I paid you for your custom services to make sure the branding was excellent and on point, but we did not actually. We have a free subscription to Webflow, which I think kind of blows people's minds sometimes when they see what we created. And while my site is simple because it's info, going back to like what's the purpose of your website, mine is to relay info of services. I'm not trying to get anyone to buy anything. I mean, I want someone to call me or send me an email, or schedule a meeting with me. That's pretty much it.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of them have the same or similar capabilities with the hosting and all that stuff, but you're spot on. I mean, it is very modern. It's like they've kind of taken the best of some of these other platforms and given a really well-rounded platform to build off of. And their pricing structure, actually, I will say, is one of the things that is so different about them. It's set up very differently. And such, I mean, we didn't, I don't believe, even pay for any of the services until the site was live, which is pretty big because for most other ones, you get like a 7-day free trial. And then at that point, you do start paying, whether your site's live or not, whether it takes you a month or 2 weeks or whatever to get it live, you're paying for it. Whereas with Webflow, you're not paying till it's live. So that's pretty cool.
So, hey, Kylan, Robin Hall joined us, and she,
Hi, Robin.
They're old buddies at Smartwall. And anyway, she asks, does Google like or prefer one web builder over another? And then the second kind of question is, does one builder have SEO kind of like more naturally embedded, or like does it have SEO site benefits, which is search engine optimization? Yep. Like how does Google find you? And we have Nick on here, by the way. I think we still have Nick. who's one of our SEO specialists, he could chime in too, and that would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, yeah, and he can follow this up. I will say that, not to my knowledge, does Google have a preference? And from, setting up SEO and implementing it, there's a way on all of them. I mean, I don't think a web platform could get away with having no SEO capabilities. So they definitely all have it. It looks a little different. With WordPress, there's some plugins that can give you a more simplified approach, or if you want to take a really advanced approach. Again, with WordPress, it's really whatever you want it to be. If you want something simple, great. If you want something more complex, it's also there. I do know with Squarespace and Webflow, it's kind of like, it's all there. It's you don't really get to pick and choose, but you have the capability to set up your SEO. So I don't know if.
And then I think Robin's using Shopify, she says here.
Okay.
So if you want to jump into anything on Shopify, and then real quickly, and then I would say, Nick, if you're available to chat, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but Nick is going to be part of our meeting next month. Like, we're going to have a fireside all about SEO and like 5 things that anybody can do to improve their SEO, basically. But he's here and has a wealth of knowledge in that specific area.
Yeah, well, thanks, Aaron. I definitely would agree with Kylan. However, we have not really worked with Webflow before, so I can't really speak to that yet. So I'm interested, Kylan, to get some more information from you for another time.
Yeah.
Because Blue Fireside is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, Robin, I definitely would agree. And as it relates to Shopify, it really depends on. I assume you have a shop and you're selling some particular products. So depending on kind of what that is and the images and the context, I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but a little bit different techniques for a services company versus a shop, but platform independent. So be happy to talk to you more about that, and hopefully we can catch up next week and maybe answer some more of your questions.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's next month because I can't do this like.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna be on spring break. I'm gonna be in Vegas, man. So so it's May 13th, I want to say, and we're gonna do them always on Thursdays at 4:30 Mountain because we think that's fun. Just so you know.
Perfect.
All right, so that was fun. Okay, so back to wherever we were.
Yeah, I mean, so these are my top recommendations. Shopify is also a great option, especially for e-commerce. I will say, I think when we're talking about some pros and cons of Webflow in particular, their e-commerce is still in beta phase. So, Shopify, great option. There's so many options for these website builders. Could not cover them all in this amount of time. But essentially, if you're kind of stuck with, I don't know which one's right for me, or looking at these really kind of complex comparison charts of which to use and which not to use, I would say don't stress yourself out too much about it, because a lot of them offer very similar capabilities, just in different implementations, just in kind of, it may look a little different, but Google's not going to know the difference. So
way too much time worrying about this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people worry and stress out about it when I don't think it's worth it. That's not worth
like, I mean, unless you're a web developer, you're not building a website all the time, right? Like I do this like every 10 years or something. And so like, I was like, oh gosh, and
yeah,
and you were like,
that's natural.
Cool. It's fine. Like you'll be satisfied. But one thing I'm glad about, I recall from my last website, WordPress, like all those plugins and the updates, and you have to stay on top of it. And that is kind of, I feel like that's sort of antiquated. Like I don't know. But
Yeah, the other option is, there are companies, literally the only thing that they do, the only thing they offer is managing your WordPress website and keeping it up to date. So it's just, when you look at your own personal time commitment, what you're willing to offer, when you look at budget, just all things to consider. And if you have that hard of a time kind of figure out where you fall, I honestly feel like instead of looking at these really complex comparison charts of like every aspect of these builders, to me, it really comes down to like a couple things. It's what is kind of the scope of your project in terms of what you're looking for out of features, the interactive elements of your website. If you want clean and, clean cut, simple, that's going to be very different than if you want all of these interactions and you want it really dynamic and all these, trigger effects. And if you want like searching capabilities within your website, like, real estate websites, stuff like that, or all sorts of stuff. That's very different than something super simple. Like I want a one-page website that has some, couple visuals and describes what my company's about. So what's the scope in that sense? How much time you're willing to dedicate to maintaining? How often do you think your content's going to need updating, and how tech savvy are you? I think if you answer those questions really honestly, then I feel like you can usually hone in on which is right for you just based off of that alone. And then honestly, if you're still kind of stuck, I don't think you can really go too wrong. A lot of them offer the same things, like I said. So, a lot of features, a lot of support features. So you'll be well taken care of, so long as you're, sticking to some of like the top recommended platforms. I mean, they're all fairly comparable when you really get down to it. So, all right. So just, I guess, to wrap stuff up a little bit, I think some really key takeaways here are, really looking at your website as an asset, really looking at it as a brand and living and functioning brand ambassador. Investing in your website, investing in someone that's going to help you build it from a brand forward perspective, from an informed design perspective, investing in copywriting if that's what you need, if that's not a skill set of yours, or if you really feel like that's where you can use some help. I think these are all things that are worth investing in, that are going to, make your website the best tool for you that it can be, making it really serve you. And then, really laying some of that groundwork, determining who your target audience is, determining your own objectives, because those two are going to feed almost everything else. Utilizing design in a really authentic way, engaging way, compelling way, that's going to make people engage with your website. It's going to make them almost brand ambassadors for you as well. They're going to want to forge those brand relationships with you and be advocates of your brand. And that's really important. And then, always making sure you're regularly checking your analytics, always checking your numbers. If you need to shift and change anything, that's totally fine. These are not things that are set in stone. They can change and you can improve, and, just always keeping an eye on those things to help influence and, influence your brand and influence the website, making sure it is the best it can be. And especially just, with things change, things in the digital world, they change pretty quickly. So they keep you on your toes. So always making sure things are looking good. So I think, we'll open it up to you guys and have a little bit more of an open conversation. If anyone has any burning questions or anything that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up, or anything we didn't talk about enough, if you want to dig into it a little bit more, anything goes. So
you want to float
to you guys.
about a new business, because this is really targeted for, we work with clients that are well established. They've got, like, we don't even touch their websites, right? So like we have integrated marketing here. So, but what this purpose is, like what the Firesides are about, is to take, folks that are, either trying to grow, an existing brand that's been word of mouth, but like they're trying to figure out how to have a stronger platform on the web. I'm sorry, a stronger presence, I meant to say. And use storytelling, use your brand. I personally speak from experience, like having had a previous brand that was just really underserved. Like we had a website that did kind of nothing, and we kind of just did nothing. I don't know why, but it's just the way it was. And that was something that I was committed to changing. And I realized how just exactly what the whole thing that we're trying to say here is that your website is the door that's opening people up to your brand, whether you're selling a service or a product. And so it does have to reflect your values. It has to reflect the heart of who your brand is, and the storytelling on it also should. And it should be engaging, and it should be updated, and it should be consistent. Correct? I would say. So anyway, I think there are a couple folks that are either starting something new or have businesses that maybe they want to grow or just reach more people. If definitely wouldn't put anybody on the spot, but if anyone wants to share, like, hey, I have this idea about this, and I want to know like the first step, or what's the first step I take, or because I think that there's a lot of inertia sometimes. Like I have this great idea, but I can't quite take that next step forward, or it's so overwhelming there because I have like 60 things I have to do. So that's sort of where I think these Firesides have an offering where there's a lot of people who know a lot of stuff. And I think maybe Holly is raising her hand, but maybe not. Yeah. Is that what that means? The hand says, okay, Robin, because she said, I saw some movement there.
High five. Yeah, Holly, Holly, you want to go ahead? Sorry, didn't mean to steal your thunder if you have one. No, maybe not.
We can go to Holly next.
Okay. I guess, Aaron, and forgive me, I'm sorry I'm late. I've been in meetings, and so you might have covered this already, but as far as hiring Bluefire, when I say I need website help, in my mind, there's multiple facets here, right? If I'm using Shopify, first off, I need a photographer for content. Then I need a graphic designer to create maybe my iconography and some other graphics. Then I need, kind of a back-end SEO person. Then I need a person to kind of pull it all together and make sure that kind of the wireframe of it all is really nice and sensible. And am I thinking about that right? Is it a multifaceted approach? And is someone like Kylan, yourself, are you that one person that can do all that? Or do I need to, being a startup, there's very slim funds, as you know. And so I'm trying to think how strategically, where to spend my money and effort and time the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's cookie cutter. I'll let Aaron jump in, but.
Yeah, totally. So I think that the way Bluefire approaches that, I mean, it's true. It's a kind of overwhelming, Robin, right? Like you kind of are like, okay, I have, it feels that way because there are a lot of layers to it. And you want your brand to stand up how you exactly envision it, how your heart feels it to be, right? And so for me personally, I really like put a lot of trust in my designer. Kylan is particularly awesome because she has web development skills additionally, right? So I find her to be an excellent resource that I can trust with either myself, my work, or with client work. SEO, I have, Nick was on, he might not still be here, but we have partners that are on the East Coast that we trust wholeheartedly. They provide feedback, and there's affordable monthly services. So like if you just want to get like your analytics and you need some of those stats to come every month, and that you need to see what's working, and then you can like build more content around that. And they can make sure that your site is functioning technically well. Is it performing correctly? And because like if Google can't find you, like that's a big problem. There's lots of little fixes, but So we work with them, but it's definitely coming back to your content strategy. And that's what you're asking, like who's kind of holding the whole brand and making sure that the web, the SEO, the content that's going out there, and then the actual functionality and the conversions happening. Like it's nice to have somebody who's looking at it from an integrated perspective and kind of putting a big hug around your brand. And that's kind of, you call it project management, you know, but that's a kind of a content in a Blue Fire sense of it. We are a content strategy driven firm. Okay. There's other firms, like if you're like, I need hardcore digital, you know what, I need metrics and I need numbers, like then you could go with somebody else. But if you want somebody who does all of it, but you're driving content and you're trying to grow life out of and bring the brand to your consumer, then you want a content strategist.
Great, that helps. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Anybody else have? Okay, Holly. Okay, I want to tell everybody what they do just for giggles, because people might not know each other. I obviously kind of know everybody because we're just getting this going. And so it's not like the whole universe is coming onto this platform to talk to us. But Robin just founded this killer company called Town Hall. It's sustainable outerwear at the time, right now, or an apparel company for kids. So it's Steamboat based. She comes from an incredible background at VF and Smartwool. Anyway, I just want to make sure that everyone knew about Town Hall Co, right? Townhall.co? Townhallco.
Town Hall CO. Yep. Townhallco.com. Yep.
Okay. So anyway, radical.
Thank you.
By the way, Holly is Mountain Town Magazine. She's driving. And she, by the way, I wanted you to connect Holly. Holly is a journalist. She has Mountain Town Magazine, and she has Mountain Town Women, and she has Mountain Town Breckenridge, right? And yeah, 3 publications. But anyway, I wanted to connect Robin to Holly because I think you need to interview Robin with her startup and like what she's up to. And she just met with Hickenlooper. I mean, she's amazing. So you should do a story on her. So, and I was going to suggest that. I thought about it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Anyway, Holly, tell us what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, yes, I was driving, so that made me laugh. Okay, so we're talking about websites, and that's definitely something I'm right in the middle of. I started Mountain Town Magazine. I built a website for it. Then I started Mountain Women Magazine.
She's going to come back. No.
You can do it.
You can come back. Okay. We might have
me.
Yeah, here, turn off your video and see if it does better. Sometimes that helps.
Is that better? Let's
yeah,
see.
Let's just try audio. Go ahead.
Okay, so talking about websites, just really quickly. I started Mountain Town Magazine and I built a website for that. And I've been running that for now 8 years. I used WordPress.com, and then I created Mountain Women Magazine just a few years ago, and I used WordPress.org. And now I have Mountain Town Breckenridge Magazine, which I'm kind of running in the pages of Mountain Town Magazine, and I'm looking at like, what am I going to do? It's so interesting to have a lot of websites and have them on 2 different platforms. So that, just throwing that out there to everybody. Maybe don't do that. But that's how I did it, so it's all good.
That's what we want on in this gathering is like what not to do and where to not stress. You know, that's one thing that we do a lot when we're starting a new business is stressing on all these details. And that was one thing Kyla and I just took away that I wish I was in this session, you know, last December or November. I wish it was like, it's going to be cool. Like if you do whatever one you do, it's going to be, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. There are plenty of things to stress about. So if we can knock some stuff off the list.
I would definitely say that I think it's WordPress.org where you control everything. You use your plugins and everything else. Yeah. I really prefer that more than the other. So I will probably at some point switch over. Just, I don't know. One of those, like, and when am I going to do that?
Yeah. The nice to haves.
But I just thought I would share that just because
Mhm.
it's a dilemma I'm in right now, because I have a third website that I have to build. And yeah, I think I'm going to just go with, I think it's the .org that you operate yourself. And
Yes.
I really do prefer that.
Yeah.
So that's my share with everybody.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So cool. Well, we're at 5:30. Does anybody have anything else they want to share? There's always next month. So let me tell you about next month. Unless there's something else, just raise your hand. I love that little hand. But there's no hands and no. Okay. So next month, what our goal is with the Firesides is we're going to offer these free marketing sessions once a month. A member of our collective is going to be the kind of lead expert and kind of take, just like Kylan did, just kind of present an idea and discuss a topic. Next month will be our SEO partners, Nick and Meg Clark, and they're going to tell us about like the top 5 things anybody could do to like improve their SEO right now, like today, kind of a thing, which is a really nice thing because that SEO is like this whole other can of worms that kind of can make you stress out. And so they will kind of demystify SEO is kind of how we're going to talk about it. And so that's going to be May, I believe, 13th, 4:30 on a Thursday, Mountain Time. And this is a great opportunity to learn about keywords and content that serves, that tells Google to find you. So that's what that's about. And then anyway, there'll be future ones. So make sure that, I think most of you're on our email list, but that's how we're going to kind of get the word out on a monthly basis and make sure, hopefully we're in your contacts so it doesn't, I don't know, my email, it all goes to junk mail. It seems like it's really sensitive. So just kind of be aware of that. But yeah, hope to see you guys at the next Fireside. Just spread the word if you liked it too. Like, we're just trying to grow this community. It is about, it's about community for us. So, like, spread the word if you think we can help somebody.
Great stuff, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for joining.
You got it.
Great
Thank you.
event. Thanks for putting it together.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Thanks for stopping by. Next month,
sure.
all you guys.
Yeah, we look forward to it.
Okay, that's rad.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks, Lance. Lance, amazing artist. Oh my gosh. If you don't know,
No.
Google that.
Thanks, y'all. This was great. I appreciate y'all doing this and setting it up so easily for us to join and making it free and super helpful. So thank you. I look forward to the next one and I'm going to share it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lance. We so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Tracy. You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining. So cool.
Sweet.
I'm going to stop my recording.